Hello friends, this is Dr. Sonal Thareja from IITE. I'm very happy to be here on this platform, that is online refresher course in education organized by HRDC Gujarat University. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Jagdish Joshi ji, the professor and the director of HRDC Gujarat University, and the whole team of HRDC who's working with great vigor and innovativeness in these current times. Today I am here for the session of objective-based lesson planning. Let's begin with the session, friends. As we all know, planning is the master key for every success in the field, and so is the lesson planning the master key for any success of a teaching classroom activity. Lesson planning came into being on the basis of Gestalt psychology, as we all know. Gestalt psychology actually aims at seeing as a whole, taking the things as a whole, having a wholesome idea about something. When we talk about lesson planning, the Gestalt viewpoint here refers to that the whole lesson plan has to be taken as a wholesome idea, as a wholesome activity to be conducted in the class. Let's see the few definitions of lesson planning. Yeah. Okay. Let's begin with meaning of lesson plan or the definitions of lesson plan that experts have been given. Lesson plan is a teaching tool that helps the teachers in deciding what to teach, why to teach, when to teach, and how to teach in classroom. When we talk about what to teach, of course we mean the content. When we talk about why to teach, we of course means that to whom are we serving, who is our audience, when to teach, which is the best time that we can serve well and the audience can take well, and how to teach. It's all about pedagogy. Right. So here, as we just mentioned the word gestalt, you can see that in this definition, the wholesome idea of classroom teaching is taken in one plan, and that plan is known as lesson plan in the technical terms. Still, one more definition goes this way. Lesson plan is writing and noting the method of delivery. We are mentioning the name of the method of the delivery, that is the pedagogy that we are going to undertake. Noting it, the specific goals. Yes, each and every classroom activity has specific goal. The list of specific goals as such and timelines associated to the delivery of the lesson content. Timeline means again a plan is there, follow that plan and get a great success into your teaching along with the lesson plan. Education Dictionary says that a lesson plan is a written guide for teachers in order to achieve the intended learning outcomes. It provides specific definition, direction on learning objectives, equipments, instructional media, material requirements, and conduct of training. As we can see here in this definition also, friends, they have talked about that what are the intended learning outcomes, and for that, what are the specific definitions, the direction, objectives, equipments, instructional media, and conduct of training. Still, if we further move to few more meaning and definitions that will give more clarity to the term lesson plan. A lesson plan is an organized statement of general and specific goals. Now, this definition is focusing not only on specific goals, but also the general specific goals, together with specific means by which these goals are to be achieved by the learner under the guidance on a given day. The goals are to be achieved. There are two types of goals, general and specific, together with specific means, that is with a specific pedagogy. We are here to achieve the goal. The learner has to achieve this goal, and this is done under the guidance on a given day. Lesson plan must be prepared, no choice. Must be prepared because there is nothing to stop a teacher's progress as unpreparedness. Directly or indirectly, the result comes this way of this definition. The interpretation of this definition is that if you want to be prepared as a teacher, lesson plan is a must. Daily lesson planning involves defining the objectives and arranging the subject matter and determining the method and procedure given by Binning and Binning. As we saw in all, a lesson plan, what is the gist of the meaning of lesson plan? Lesson plan is an organized statement. First of all, it is a technical statement which one has to learn how to prepare it. It should focus on intended learning outcomes, and to achieve those intended learning outcomes, the statement of general specific goals have to be specified together. For a particular day, for a particular unit, and again, it will consider each and everything, that is the delivery of the content, arranging the subject matter, and determining the procedure. So this is all about the meaning of lesson plan. Moving towards the advantages of lesson plan. The advantages of lesson plan, if we talk about, increase student performance. When we are talking about students' performance, we here mean academic performance. When a lesson plan is planned in such a way that each and every subject matter is organized according to the timeline and the pedagogies, of course, it will have a better understanding on the part of the students. And when the timeline is fixed, the course completion will not be a problem. And in all such cases, the student academic performances, of course, shines and increases. Clear purpose for learning for students. When a lesson plan is made, as we all know, there are general and specific goals. There are general and specific objectives. So when the purpose is clear, when we have framed the specific objectives to achieve, when the purpose is clear for learning for the students, not only for teacher to teach, but even for students to what has to be learned. Teacher and student ownership of learning. Now here we can see that ownership of learning. When a lesson plan is prepared, we own the learning material because we prepare it keeping in mind the whole lesson plan. And this increases the ownership of learning between teacher and student. It increases students' productivity. When we talk about students' productivity, here we mean that productivity in terms of his capabilities, his capacities, his overall development. When we are preparing a lesson plan, we are not only focusing upon one general objective, we are focusing upon various purposes and objectives in which the overall development of students is focused. And hence, it helps to increase students' productivity. Decreased need for intervention. When a lesson plan is prepared, there is actually not decreased but no need of intervention. When one has planned in such a way that all the parameters are kept into mind, then there is no need for intervention or a change. And this increases the rate of success. Improved classroom learning environment. Classroom learning environment is something which is very important. Whether your classroom learning environment you want is to be learner based, teacher based, knowledge based, community based, result based. So when you are making a lesson plan, it improves classroom learning environment because you are selecting one of the main parameter on what your lesson plan will set up to tune, and hence it gradually starts improving classroom learning environment. More strategic use of resources. As we all know, a teacher while teaching makes use of various resources. Now here the word is strategic. The resources are used because when in a lesson plan it is planned that how to use it, when to use it, how much to use it, and this whole strategy is planned for the resources, it will give us more outcome and hence a better learning environment. So this is all what we saw about advantages of lesson plan. So a small idea about what is the lesson plan and what are the advantages of lesson plan. Further, we'll move to importance of learning objectives in a lesson plan. As our topic is objective-based lesson plan, it's very important that we first find out the interesting things about the importance of learning objectives in lesson plan. Learning objectives communicate specifically what students should be able to do. Very specifically, and that is known as specific objectives, as we all know. Learning objectives tell students what is important, what has to be focused upon, on what content points has the learner as well as a teacher to focus more. So, like what is important is directly intended in the learning objectives. Learning objectives are used to guide students as they work through the course. As the whole course goes on, the students are guided with the learning objectives because learning objectives are measurable. That we will see further. They are measurable and hence they guide students on their own pace within the course completion procedure. Learning objectives provide a guide for students when reviewing materials and preparing for assessments. Materials can be reviewed, assessments can be prepared along with learning objectives. Because learning objectives not only decide the specific goals, the specific objectives, but even the teacher-student activities, which is directly again connected to evaluation and assessments. Learning objectives help instructors determine assessment creation. And finally, learning objectives are the most powerful if they are actionable and measurable. So friends, we could see that learning objectives are very important in any lesson plan. Let us quickly see 5 E's and R of lesson plan. When you're making a lesson plan, when you are concentrating upon objectives-based lesson plan, the 5 E's that are important are engage. To whom to engage? Of course, students. Encouraging student to the topic. Engage, join, involve students. Right, so when you're making a lesson plan, this is to be kept in mind, that engage students, engross the students. The second E stands for explore. What is to be explored here? Helping students study, review, and probe into the topic. Help students with all the resources that they can explore to the best for the content. The third E stands for explain. Explain here means helping students to clarify, elucidate, and simplify the topic. Let the students convey the topic and understand the topic into classified and simpler material. Right? Still, the next fourth E stands for elaborate, helping students enhance the learning of the topic. Let the students elaborate and enhance the learning of the content. Evaluate, judging and assessing students' performance. And when all this is done, when all the 5 E's are accomplished, repeat, right? Repeat the whole process. So this is all about how an objective-based lesson plan will go. Okay. Moving towards the next slide, let us see the types of lesson plans. As we all know, in education, we concentrate upon 3 types of lesson plan: micro lesson, integrated lesson, often known as bridge lesson, and the third is stray lesson. When we talk about micro lesson, we all know that the process in teacher training wherein controlled training of different skills is given in a controlled situation, and the capacity of any one skill is given at a time. Right? That is known as a micro lesson. We all know there are various micro lessons, micro lesson skills, and after acquiring mastery over this skill, another skill is taken. The next is integrated lesson. This is that lesson in which the teacher trainees gain mastery over the use of coordination of selected micro skills woven with some portion of content. Right? And again, this is in a simulated atmosphere. And the third type is stray lesson. Stray lesson, as we all know, teachers use different techniques to design their curriculum, how they'll deliver content, and they prepare a lesson plan on the basis of that, which is known as a stray lesson plan. Stray lesson plan is prepared for each and every lecture, each and every session by the teacher. Let's take one by one the various lessons. Moving to objective-based micro lesson plan. As we all know, there are various types of micro teaching skills like introduction, explaining, questioning, demonstration, reinforcement, closure, stimulus variation, and blackboard. Let us take one by one, talking about skill of introduction, also known as, very fondly we call this skill set induction. As we all know, set induction is a skill for introducing of the lesson. Here the objective that we write on the skill of set induction plan is to enable the teacher trainee to develop the skill of set induction in so-and-so subject. As we all know, the desirable behavior of set induction are use of pre-knowledge, use of appropriate device like questioning, narration, storytelling, demonstration, role play, problem, examples, audio-visual aids. And the undesirable behaviors are lack of continuity, uttering irrelevant statements, and artificial use of set induction. Now, when we are making a lesson plan, especially objective-based lesson plan of set induction, please keep in mind that in components column, the name of the desirable component is written adjacent to its use in lesson plan. All these desirable components that you can see like questioning, narration, etc., they're all taken and written in the column of component adjacent to the teacher-student activity that is going on. Wherever they are used, they are put. We may use more than one desirable component at one time. That is, there can be pre-knowledge plus an appropriate device use. There might be a use of pre-knowledge plus demonstration plus problem, right? So there might be more than one desirable component at one time. And in this case, both names are written in the component column. The third tip here for objective-based lesson planning in set induction is that the names of undesirable components are not written anywhere in the lesson plan. We do not write it anywhere. It has to be kept in mind and we use it implicitly as we are following the lesson plan. So this is all about set induction lesson plan. Moving to the next is skill of explaining or skill of narration. As we all know, skill of explanation refers to explain or give understanding to another person. It deals with the ability to use verbal and non-verbal cues at appropriate times in the lesson. The objective that is written for explaining skill is to enable the teacher trainee to develop the skill of explanation in dash subject, in so-and-so subject, in English subject, commerce subject, maths subject. Components in skill of explanation are use of accurate language, clear pronunciation, fluency, change in voice, stress on main points, gestures, harmony in presentation, audibility, time management, effectiveness. Now, when we are preparing a lesson plan for the skill of explaining, in components column, the name of the desirable component is written adjacent to its use in the lesson plan. Whatever teacher-student activities has, uske adjacent mein we will be writing the name of the desirable component. Again, here also we may use more than one desirable component at one time. And in this case, both names will be written. Talking about the next skill lesson plan, and that is about skill of probing in questioning or probing questioning. As we all know, skill of probing questioning means going deep into pupils' response through step-by-step questioning with a view of eliciting the criterion response. Here the objective is to enable the teacher trainee to develop the skill of probing questioning in dash subject. Components are prompting, seeking further information, refocusing, redirection, increasing critical awareness. Now here there's a little difference of how the objectives, the components are put into the components column, the names of the objectives. As the name is probing and questioning, this becomes the process. How the process goes? The questions are put to students, but there is no response. Students do not know. At that juncture, teacher uses prompting technique, right? So when teacher is using prompting technique or a prompting question, in the adjacent column of the component, the word prompting will be used. Then as the teacher prompts, she gets an answer and she moves to the second intellectual phase, that is seeking further information. So adjacent to that question, in the components column, we write seeking further information. Prompting and seeking further information will go for a while in a lesson plan unless the generalization is being done by the students. And then it comes upon refocusing on what the teacher wants the students to refocus upon in that content, redirecting, and in the end, putting the most difficult question of the content and clarifying and getting satisfied answers from the learners, which becomes the component of increasing critical awareness. So in components column, the name of the used component is written in adjacent to the use of lesson planning, but mostly the sequence will go from prompting to increasing critical awareness while mentioning the components. The next is skill of closure. Skill of closure means the teacher trainee's skill to properly close the lesson plan, to wrap up the lesson plan and help students organize the overall information that he has understood out of the content. So meaningful context should come in his mind while a teacher is doing the closure. The objective on this lesson plan is to enable the teacher trainee to develop the skill of closure in so-and-so subject. The components here are linking to instructional objectives, linking to the advanced organizers, linking with familiar materials, value of the lesson, Immediately after linking, in the closure, what do? We do follow-up resources. Provide information on relevant resources that can be complementary for the lesson. It can be textual, video, audio, multimedia, any option. And then reviewing and summarizing the reviewing, and then give follow-up assignments for the same. This is the way how the closure is done technically. In a lesson plan, how do we write? In a lesson plan, adjacent to teacher-student activities in the components column, the name of the desirable component is written adjacent to the point in the teacher-student activity. The components are written in sequence from linking to follow-up for assignments again. So again, even in the closure, we need to follow the process, the sequence of the lesson. Okay. Next, skill of reinforcement. Now, what is skill of reinforcement? Reinforcement involves doing something, giving something to the student that increases the likelihood that a behavior or a skill will be repeated. It refers to maximum use of reinforcement in appropriate manner. The objective that is written on the skill of reinforcement lesson plan is to enable the teacher trainee to develop the skill of reinforcement in so and so subject. The components here are positive verbal reinforcement, positive non-verbal reinforcement, and negative verbal reinforcement. Still, inappropriate use of reinforcement, and lastly, no use of reinforcement. How do we write the objectives or the components in the lesson plan of skill reinforcement? Here the tips are, in components column, the name of the positive verbal or non-verbal component is written adjacent to its use in lesson planning. We are writing the name of the positive verbal or non-verbal component. We may use a combination of verbal and non-verbal. For example, we may use good plus nodding head. So a combination of verbal and non-verbal component. And in this case, both are written in the component column. PVR plus PNVR. Component 3, 4, and 5, that is this negative verbal reinforcement, inappropriate use of reinforcement, and no use of reinforcement. They are not written in the lesson plan anywhere, but they are impliedly followed while making a lesson. So this is all about skill of reinforcement. Skill of stimulus variation. Skill of stimulus variation means the set of teachers' behavior that tend to secure and sustain pupils' attention. The objective here is to enable the teacher trainee to develop the skill of stimulus variation in so and so subject. The components are movements, teachers' movements, gestures, change in speech patterns, change in interaction styles. When we talk about interaction style, there are 3 types. Teacher to class, that is teacher talks to class and vice versa. Teacher pupil, teacher talks to a pupil and vice versa, and the pupil talks to the teacher. Pupil talks to pupil. These are the 3 main interaction styles, and these changes in the interaction styles are taken into stimulus variation. Yeah, still, if we see minutely, there are again interaction styles which can be subdivided into teacher to whole class, teacher to a small group of students, because in few pedagogies, in few teaching approaches, we would see that the teacher is talking to the whole class. If it's a narration or a lecture based, the teacher will be talking to whole class. But if we talk about a project method or perhaps a discussion method, a group discussion method, in those cases, it might happen that a teacher is talking to a small group of students. At times, pupil to pupil, the teacher is not involved. It's totally a learner-centered method, and hence pupil to pupil. Pupil to whole class. A pupil, the pedagogy is in that way that a pupil is talking to the whole class. Maybe an assignment method and the follow-up of the assignment, and in which the pupil is talking to the whole class at the end. Then we have pupil to small group. So this mostly happens in such pedagogies where a collaborative and cooperative learning techniques are used. At that time, we can see this in this type of an interaction, that is pupil to the small group. And finally, teacher to pupil's individual work. Teacher is not talking to the pupil, but teacher is talking to his work, to his assignment, to his project. Right? So these are the various types of interaction style, which are all considered into the scale of stimulus variation. Now, then apart from this four, we have focusing, pausing, and oral visual switching. In the lesson planning of stimulus variation, in the components column, the name of the component, whichever is used, is written adjacent to its use in lesson plan. We may use more than one component at one time, and in this case, both names are written again. So this is all what we saw about objective-based lesson planning in different skills of micro-teaching. Right? There are various micro-teaching plans. They are prepared in a similar way. Perhaps the format of the columns is similar in all the micro-teaching plans. The objective always be to enable the teacher trainee to develop the skill of so-and-so in so-and-so subject. But writing of the columns, writing of the components in the columns, there is a difference with each and every skill of micro teaching. I hope this is understood by you, everybody. Okay.